Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Polumi. I'm the lab in charge and I'm the biology educator at Tuition E Technology. At Tuition E, we connect you with the best teachers to provide online tutoring for IB, British curriculum, ICSE, CBSE curriculum in UAE, Oman, and Qatar. We ensure you that our learners will get the best guidance from the best teachers. You can book a free demo class and get back to us. So today we are presenting this session about can food make us think and why we have selected this topic. Because we recognize that being in the best of health is the key to achieving your dreams. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation time, you can put your questions in the chat box and we will also have time for questions at the end. Now, let me introduce with our guest speaker, Shreya Chakraborty. Shreya ma'am is MSc in Applied Nutrition, Diploma in Sports Nutrition and Gut Health. She is also UGC NET qualified. Ma'am is having more than 6 years of experience in nutrition, handling psychological patients. She is currently working as a corporate nutritionist. Hello, ma'am. So, okay, ma'am, now the platform is all yours. Go ahead.
Thank you for introducing me and inviting me for the talk. So I will straight away present my presentation. Do let me know if you all can see the presentation. Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible? Hello. Hello.
I think it's visible.
Okay. So today's topic is, can food make us think? So we have learned a lot, like food is required by our body for working purpose, and also it provides fuel. And if we don't have the right kind of food, then it may affect our physical health, and it may lead to various health related problems such as sugar, diabetes. But what we most of the time miss is like food also affects our brain also and our mental health. So today we will be discussing with how food and mental health is related. Okay. So before we dive into the health topic, mental health topic, let me give you a picture where we see burgers and fries and cold drinks. Cold drinks. So what are the emotions or feelings that you are seeing after the picture? Because any you all will relate that when we see a picture of a food that we like, or some of the sumptuous meals picture when we see in the internet, or we see them in the cooking videos, we automatically feel a little bit of hungriness. So why is it? So we will be discussing all these things in detail, but first we will check like how is food and brain related. So let us see how is brain made up of. We know brain has numerous nerve connections. There are some neurotransmitters that are being present in the brain, and there are some nerve endings throughout the body which connects our body to the brain. But what does brain require and what it is made of actually? So if we see through the components, so the composition, structure and function of the brain depends upon what kind of foods we are having. So in the picture, as you can see, the brain is made up of proteins, glucose, micronutrients and fats. We have all have seen this or have read this, like we need an glucose for our body to metabolize, or we need glucose for our energy, but no one tells like glucose is required by our brain also. Around 50 to 60% of whatever glucose we have is being used up by our brain for the function. So if we are not having balanced nutrients, a little less of glucose or a little less of fats, it may affect our brain structure as well as our brain health, along with all the functions of the neurotransmitters. So if we look into the scientific literature or the researches that are being done, because now mental health is on the go. Okay, so everyone or every in the scientific community, they are dipping, they are checking all the things like how our food and mental health is being related. So it is seen like those who have depression or bipolar disorder, it is seen like if we see their food patterns or food choices, they usually have a high intake of fat and a high intake of sugar. And next is, it was a project that I was also a part of it in my duration of the in my duration of my office. So it was like how gut microbiota was being playing a major role in depression and anxiety. So let me briefly describe you what is gut microbiota. So gut is nothing, as you can see in the picture, it's the stomach. So in stomach, we both have a large amount of bacteria. Some are good and some are bad. So when there is a difference, or if there is higher percentage of the bad bacteria, then we get prone to sickness, then we get prone to various other physical disorders. But recently it has been seen like not only we are having physical health problems, but we can develop anxiety, depression. So for example, if a person is at a stress, you would see like you won't be able to eat the food like you usually do, or you would develop some acidity if you are being stressed out and you are eating. This is because the gut microbiota balance has been is not in good proportion and has been imbalanced. That's why we suffer from this. And another thing is like when we check about the dietary patterns, or when we see like when we ask patients, to psychological patients, like what foods do they munch on when they are not feeling good or when they are feeling bad. So it's much, the stress is much on the unhealthy foods, the salted things. And one more thing, since we know that amino acid is being given by the protein in our body. So if there is a lack of protein, so our neurotransmitters, which are basically made out of fats and amino acids, so if there is protein deficient diet, so there will be an alteration in the neurotransmitter production, and it may lead to some of the health issues such as Alzheimer's, then and other mental health disorders. So now we come to like sugar addiction. I have earlier discussed like what are the scientific literatures or what the science community or the scientists are doing on their part to check how food and mental health is related. So it is in like sugar is an addiction, and it forms a vicious cycle in our body. So many of the times you will see like when we ask as a nutritionist, or when we visit to a doctor, when they ask like what foods do you eat or what kind of foods do you like, some tends to say like I don't like salty things, but I like something that are sugar coated or that is sweet. And after lunch or after dinner, we have a habit of having something sweet because we crave for the sweet things. So why does this craving come? So this is what happens like when you are having like 2 or 3 spoonfuls of sugar in your tea or in your morning breakfast. So it has an addictive property. When we see the chemical properties of sugar, it almost resembles morphine or cocaine. So the sugar produces those changes in our brain when a person consumes a drug like cocaine or morphine. So what happens is when we eat like when we eat more sugar, like 2 or 3 teaspoons or spoonfuls of sugar, what our body does is our blood sugar level rises. So once the blood sugar level rises suddenly, so there is a release of one hormone called dopamine, so which causes the addiction. And there is another hormone in our body called insulin, which tries to balance out the sugar levels in our body and instantly starts converting the sugar into fat. So it not only like it's hampering our physical health, like converting it into the fats, but also it is also doing a addictive kind of thing to our brain, and we start craving for more and more sugar because we love the surge of the insulin in our body. So this is how like sugar is being addicted to the mental health. And also like what are the bad effects of the food on on mental health and brain development. So next we come to the main thing, like we have till now I was talking about like what are the foods that causes brain health issues and brain damage, like these kinds of things. So is there a way, like there are any foods that brain can love? So if we see, yes, brain do love foods. So if we categorize like what kind of foods to be given, it comes under two classifications. So food for brain development and food for mental health. So there are certain kinds of foods that are required for the brain development of the baby as well as for an adult. And there are some of the foods that are required for our brain health and mental health to be in the good manner and to have a sane mental health balance. So first we will check upon like what are the foods required for brain development. So if we see like when does brain develop? So we know like brain develops in the where when someone gets pregnant, but from where it starts? So brain starts developing from the first trimester of the pregnancy, and it starts development till 25 years of age. Most of our common notion is like once we are 18, then there is no brain growth or brain development. But science has proven like no. If we eat a healthy, balanced nutrition meal and the foods that brain loves, then the connections, the interconnections can all develop and modify till the 25 years of age. So when a mother gets pregnant or when a lady gets pregnant, the first thing is in the first trimester of the pregnancy, we should be giving or she should be having foods that are good for the brain development. Often what we see or what we do is like on the first trimester of the pregnancy, the maximum people don't get to eat foods or they start aversions to the food, and they do not have those foods which are required for the healthy growth of the baby as well as for the mental growth. So what it does is like then later on post delivery we see like there can be some of the development delays, and there can be certain changes also. So, what are the nutrients that are required for the brain for brain development? So, it's like iodine, iron, omega 3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, copper, magnesium. And we all know, like, when a person gets pregnant, we usually give iron and folic acid tablets. But we miss out for iodine, omega 3 fatty acids, and magnesium. If a diet is deficit in magnesium of the mother, it will not only affect the fetus's physical health, but it will also affect the brain health and the brain development. And iron and vitamin B12, if there is less, we know there can be a difficulty in pregnancy, in delivery, like this kind of things. But what we don't know is like even if there is a little less of the iron in our body, it may hamper our brain health and brain development while the person is being pregnant. So in which foods we will be finding all these foods? So check out the next slide for that. So here is the foods that are required for brain growth and development. As you can see, like the fatty fishes, like salmon, you can get. Then you can have almonds, like whatever nuts you can have that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and that will provide you the required amount of the omega-3 fatty acids required for brain development. Then you can see a picture of seeds. So seeds are not only a rich source of only the healthy fats, but also it provides you micronutrients like magnesium, zinc, then antioxidants also. Because if a body is lacking in an antioxidant, or if a diet is lacking in antioxidants, then there is a reduction in the brain growth. So if a person has about 70% of the brain growth during certain period of time, and during that time if there is magnesium deficiency or antioxidants deficiency like vitamin C or vitamin E, then the brain development of 70% can be reduced to about 20 or 30%. Then comes yogurt and green leafy vegetables. So yogurt not only provides you with with calcium, but it also gives you the good bacteria that are required in our body, specifically the gut. And then we come to the green leafy vegetables. So green leafy vegetables can be any leafy vegetables like lettuce, spinach, anything which will be beneficial to the mother as well as to the baby for its growth and development of the brain. So next we come to foods that are good for our mental health. So for like above 25 years or above 30 years, to keep ourselves, our brain in intact form, and to keep our mental health happy, we should include fatty fishes, bananas, because you will see like banana is very good whenever you're upset or if you are feeling very low in your life. It happens due to the function of one neurotransmitter. So what banana does is banana increases the dosage of the neurotransmitter, thus thereby helping you in the uplifting of the mood. And then why we prefer telling whole grains? Because whenever we are taking like refined things, maybe vermicelli or maybe some other pastas which are from the maida products or some other refined products or the refined dals, what happens is during the processing there is a lot of loss of the micronutrients. And as I have described earlier, like micronutrients are required for the mental health as well as for the brain development. So incorporate a lot of whole grains and seeds too. Next, we come to emotional eating. So there was lockdown in 2020. So we have been more or less gone through this emotional eating, wherein when we feel upset or when we feel very angry, what we do is now some people avoid food and some people gorge on their favorite meal. It's not like when you are feeling unhappy, you would be eating your regular food. You will be searching for your comfort food, for example, ice cream, some chocolates, and you would be eating on that, and you would be eating on the whole day through it so that you can cope up with your emotional stress. Why does it happen? So as we have discussed, like there is a relation between the gut microbiota and the brain health. So there is another relation. So we know that there are nerve endings throughout our body. And if we see to the stomach, that is the gut. So if we see the intestine, then the pancreas, then the duodenum, we will be seeing that there are some nerves which we call vagus nerves. So when we are upset or when we worry, what happens is like they get stimulated. And once it gets stimulated, some of the people or some of us, what we do is when they get stimulated, we crave or we carve for those comfort food, because we believe like if we have those food, our stress will be reduced, or our mental pressure would be reduced. But on the contrary, it doesn't reduces anything. We feel a little bit calm, but it's just temporary. Once we stop having those food, then we will be again be stressed out. The another thing why we have that is when a baby cries, when they are very small, like when they are just weaning, or when they are just have when they are just feeding on the breast milk, the baby cries, and the first instinct of the mother is like he the baby is crying, that means he or she is hungry, so let give her the food so that he or she will be stop crying. So what happens is that if it goes on for like months and months, it develops into a nature. The our memory gets accustomed to it. Like whenever we are having some stressful situations, or we cannot cope physically or mentally, we are being given food, so that impression stays on our brain for a long time, and which results in the emotional eating. And there are another section of the population, like when they are very nervous or tense, they do not eat. This is because like when because they feel like if they eat, the situation will worsen, or sometimes they feel like puking or vomiting. This is all because of the vagus nerve, which gets stimulated. So this is how emotional we do the emotional eating. So next we dive into binge eating. So binge eating is another kind of thing which is on the rise, and we have seen a lot of cases of binge eating during the past lockdown. Because what is binge eating? It is like whenever you are not feeling good, or like you don't have anything to do, so you start eating. Like I don't have anything to do, what can we do? So you start eating or munching on some of the things that you like. It's not like you are munching on a salad, it's like you are munching on chips. So whenever you are binge eating, or whenever you are munching on chips for a long period of time, so our gut microbiota gets irritated, and there is a imbalance in the gut microbiota, which leads to our mental health problems. And this binge eating can also be seen like whenever we are watching late night series in the Netflixes, or if we are watching a horror movie, or sometimes when we watch movies or test crickets that are going on throughout the night. So we stay up late, and we start feeling like, yeah, we need to do something. Or often what we do is like when there is a we are unable to sleep, we start eating, so that we think like if we eat, then we can fall asleep easily. So this pattern of eating small portion or small snacking on unhealthy foods is what is called binge eating. So your binge eating and emotional eating does not only affect your physical health, like the weight gain or some metabolic disorders like diabetes or heart disease, but it also affects your mental health, because you may get addicted to it, and then if you are deprived of it, you may show fits, you may show mood swings, and you would say like, I don't feel like going out, I don't like anything, I need that food. So this is how your brain gets involved into your eating, and this is how it gets very complicated if we don't stop the binge eating at a very early stage. So next we come about PCOS and mental health. So given this 21st century, PCOS is on the rise, and there are some mental health issues to the patients who suffer from PCOS, especially the girls, and also their family also faces sometimes the trauma. So what is PCOS? So PCOS is nothing but polycystic ovary syndrome. And as you can see in the picture, so The female human body has uterus and two ovaries. So in these ovaries, the eggs are produced in normal condition. So what happens in polycystic ovary? So in polycystic ovary, what happens? Your two ovaries can get affected. Your one ovaries get affected. It occurs like lesions. So there are some outgrowth of the fibers and the tissues which develop into lesions, and then you can see in the picture like it becomes rounded and these things. So this is what we call polycystic ovary. So once a person develops polycystic ovary, uh, the egg production, there is a change in the egg production which results in having trouble with having menses on regular. Then what happens is our hormonal changes, like when in a normal woman, when they go through menses, so there are certain changes in the hormones that we go through, and then the menses starts. So these hormonal changes doesn't occur in polycystic ovary, so it results in very painful menses or missing of the menses. So let me discuss like some of the common symptoms that a girl can face when she is on PCOS. So the some common symptoms are like hair loss, then there is weight gain, then there is decreased breast sizes, breakouts, excess facial hair, then there is problems in conceiving, and painful periods or no periods at all. So these are some of the common symptoms of the PCOS, and sometimes it can be different also, because there are like 4 to 5 kinds of PCOS, because it can be androgenic, it can be stress induced, it can be due to hormonal imbalance, or it can be due to some unhealthy binge eating, or sometimes it is insulin resistance. So the type of treatment depends upon like what kind of PCOD a one is having. So for simplification, or the simplification of the symptoms to get through it or to avoid it, what is like if you see like your child is suffering from acne or breakouts, what you can do is like for a week, 1 or 2, you can just skip out the dairy products and check whether their acne is reduced or not. It is conditional to one person to person. A person suffering from PCOD may have a breakout, may have acne, may not be having acne. So a person who is having acne, they can try it out and check. So if you see like your breakouts are being less or after avoiding milk, so you can just cut out the dairy from your whole diet, and you will see some improvement and changes. And then what we suggest is like for the weight gain. So if you have started gaining weight, it is to change the lifestyle modification. It's like you need to change your whole process, not only the diet. So you need more of the physical activity, because what PCOD people lacks is that even if they do physical activity for 30 to 45 minutes daily, still their weight loss is less compared to a normal obese patient. This is because of the hormones. So you need to be like very determined, and you need to practice it daily basis, the daily activities. And one more thing is like first check upon your sleep. Unless and until you are having 8 hours of proper sleep, you can develop PCOD or any other lifestyle problems. Why this is so? Because when we sleep, our body starts repairing all the tissues and all the regenerations takes place. And when we wake up, our body is refreshed. So if we are deprived, then what happens is the cortisol, there is a hormone called cortisol, which we call stress hormone. it starts increasing in our body. So once it starts increasing in our body, it it starts messing up with all the metabolic changes, and it results in the weight gain. And not only this, cortisol will affect your physical health, but it will also affect your mental health by producing more of the oxidative radicals in your brain. Thus you will be feeling a very drowsy kind of thing, and then you will see there will be a certain mental block, or you won't be able to give the proper attention to the work that you were giving earlier. So sleep is quite important for not only for the physical health but also for the mental health. So for irregular periods, what doctor does is they give their prescriptions. So if you relate to any of the symptoms, what you can do is like you should consult a doctor as well as a nutritionist, because the doctor will give you medications that will help you to regularize your period, but it won't affect your hair loss or weight gain or the breakouts or the excess facial or body hair. So for hair loss, a person, if she is feeling a lot of hair has been lost due to PCOD, so they can have some biotin supplements, because these helps in hair growth and also in hair promotion. And also biotin is very good for our hair, so you can go for that. And for excess facial and body hair is once you reduce your weight, once your hormones starts normalizing, then there would be changes in the facial and the body hair. You will see there would be a slight reduction, not a huge difference, but there will be slight reduction of the facial and the body hairs. So next we come to like PCOS diet meal plan. So what would be it? So now there are different kinds of diets that are going for the PCOS. So once you visit the doctor and you check like how, like which type of PCOD you are having, or which type of PCOS symptoms you are having, then only a nutritionist or dietitian can guide you like which diet to follow. Because in PCOS or in PCOD, what happens is you may see like there are some individuals who suffer from insulin resistance. It's not like that thin girls don't get PCOS or PCOD. Anyone within their anyone between 15 to 45 years of age can get PCOD at any moment of life. It may be due to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is nothing like you are having a high blood glucose level in your body. So if a person goes through the blood tests and sees like they are having it, so the dietitian will plan the diet accordingly to reduce your insulin resistance. So if you see like the C reactive protein is another important marker for PCOD and PCOS symptoms, because 90% of the population of the PCOD and PCOS symptoms do have high amounts of C reactive protein. So what is the C reactive protein that I'm talking about? So this C-reactive protein is nothing. It shows like how much inflammation is in your body. Because when there is inflammation in your body, that means there is some hormonal disbalance, or there is some changes going on in your metabolism which will be affecting you. So once you see your C-reactive protein is high, your dietitian will recommend a certain kind of diet. But the diet will be varying depending upon how much C-reactive protein you have and whether you have insulin resistance, or whether your PCOD and PCOS is stress induced or androgenic in nature. Another important thing, there are certain kinds, or there are certain girls who do not have PCOD but they have PCOS kind of symptoms. So what is that? So the PCOS kind of symptoms is PCOD is the disorder, and PCOS is the symptoms. So there are people who just have these symptoms. So the persons who these persons do not have all the symptoms of the PCOD, but one or two symptoms. So if your child is suffering, or if you are suffering like PCOS like symptoms, so it's a time that we start changing our lifestyle, we start modifying our diet, and we take upon our mental health so that in later on it doesn't develop into PCOD. As we are talking about menses, I should also here say, like when we are approaching our menses, there are certain times like we see uh, depressed or very sad, and we feel low in energy, and we don't want to do any kind of work even though if we love those work. These are called mood swings, and once you start having mood swings, you can through food eliminate the mood swing symptoms. So what you can do is, like whenever you are having like whenever you know your due date is there, and from the past 1 week you are feeling you have a mood swings, so you can have dark chocolates, because dark chocolates contain magnesium, so it helps in lifting up our mood. And also it helps in giving us the energy that is required by the body to work out during those periods. So you can have 1 cube of dark chocolate before going to bed, before like 1 week before the menses. Another thing what we usually generally do, like some of us do not have PCOS or PCOD, still we have painful menses, and sometimes we, to eliminate this pain, what we do is we start having warm fluids or having tea or caffeine. But tea or caffeine gives us a momentary relief, but it does not help at all in removing the pain. So if you are suffering from the pain, like on the first day of the periods or the day before the periods, you can have grapefruit, you can have papaya, you can have pineapple, and then after having those, you will be seeing like within half an hour or max to max within 2 hours, you will be seeing like your pain has vanished and you are not facing pain at all. Instead of gorging on the painkillers, you can have these things which are the natural remedies for our health. And during the before or during the menses, I would recommend as a nutritionist not to have deep fried foods or tea or coffee, because ultimately tea, whenever we are having tea or coffee or warm things, it dehydrates our body. But during the menses, what we need is a lot of fluids, so that we need a lot of fluids so that there is no pain. So that's why I recommend for cucumber curds during the periods. So this is all about PCOD and mental health. So next we come into like how restaurants plays with our mind. If you have seen, like on the first on the start of the webinar, I have given you a picture where we have shown a picture of a burger, cold drinks, and you must be thinking like, oh, when was the last time I had, I'm feeling a little bit of hungry. So at that time I told you like I will be discussing it later. So now let's discuss like how the pictures and how restaurant plays with our mind. So if you see a picture of the KFC or the stickers or pictures of any restaurants, you will be seeing they are brightly colored. Why brightly colored? Because once they are brightly colored, our eyes gets attracted to it. Automatically our mind deviates from whatever we are thinking to that attraction. So our mind starts playing games with us, like let's see when we have eaten this thing, or it feels like yeah, I'm salivating, I want to have it. Even though you will see, like even though you had food 2 hours prior of it, but when you are checking out the videos of master chefs or videos of any food cooking, you start salivating or you feel a little bit of hungriness. So this hungriness is not at all related with our satiety or with our hunger. This is our mind plays games. How does it play games? Now, when we see attractive foods or the videos of the foods, our brain has a memory, like have the memories of whatever we are having and whatever we are doing. So it starts replicating those memories in our mind, so that we start thinking when we had it or when we will be having. So for example, if for example we had a KFC like about a month prior, and today we are saying that picture, the next thing we see is it's a long time back we have eaten it, so let's eat. This is how it tricks you into having the food. So, whenever you are seeing a picture of the food, keep in your mind like your mind is playing, and the food and the attraction is playing with your memories. The last sumptuous meal you had, or the last typical that kind of meal you had. So you may be having a little bit of a hungriness, but control it. Once you control it, you will be able to see like after within 5 to 10 minutes you are not feeling hungry. Or if you change the channel of the videos of the foods to some other, you will be seeing like you are not feeling hungry at all. So often we tend out to have parties in the restaurants, or we go to the restaurants for eating like once a month, or when we are having a cheat meal, or when we see like we don't like to make or prepare food. So what to do when we are heading for the restaurants? The first thing is like we should eat a bowl of salad before going to the restaurant, because when we enter a cafe or a restaurant, we have this smell of all the foods and the food delicacies, right? So once we start having those smells in our body, smells through our nose, our mind starts the stimulating the vagus nerve, which in turn creates a huge amount of saliva in our mouth, as well as it starts to produce gastric juice into our stomach. And hence, even if you are not hungry when you were outside of the restaurant, but when you enter, you will automatically feel like you are having appetite, a little bit of more appetite. So it's better if you have salad before. So even if you take out with the like, if you have these aromas also, if you feel hungry also, the hungriness will be much lesser when you are on empty stomach than when you are having a salad in your stomach. This is the first thing. Second thing is lighting. Have you noticed like cafes or the restaurants, they have very dark lighting like yellow lights, or the red lights, or they are very dark as you can see in the picture. This is because it is being done so that you can concentrate only on the food and food. And lightings are placed in such a manner that it will only reflect the food and nothing else. So this lighting also, what it does, like we what we do is we tend to pay more attention to the things when there is some light, or when there is focus of light. So these only happens in the restaurant. Like since the restaurant lights are always falling on the food and they are glazing, we start giving more attention to the food than to our surroundings. Next is food portions. So if you check with the restaurants and the cafes, you would be seeing like when they give the food portions or serve you the food portions, you feel a little less. Why is it so? The thing is that it is due to the plate sizes. Because if you check out the plate sizes of the restaurants or the cafes with your home, you will be seeing there is a huge difference. So even if you are being served the same food portions, you would be feeling that the plate is not full. The plate is the food is only accompanying one third of it. So you would be feeling like, no, I need to have more food. So you will start having more food portions. So this is how restaurant plays with our mind, and we also start getting into those games, and we feel like we haven't eaten much, although we have eaten a lot of the food. Next, as I have discussed the ambience, so the flavor and the smell and constant seeing the food, you will always feel hungry. So it's better if you have some salads or soups before you go to the restaurants. So whatever portion size you will be having would be less, and you would be saying like you are more paying attention to with whomever you have gone to. You are paying more attention to what they are saying than the proper food. So we have discussed a lot about the restaurants, like how mental health affects our food and how food should be eaten, what are the things good for the brain and good for our mental health. Now we would like to see like what a healthy plate should look like. So this is a healthy plate. So how does it look like? No, you can see like 50% is about fruits and veggies. So it should be like around 30, like 3 to 4 servings of fruits and vegetables should be taken on daily basis. 1 cup of milk on daily basis, and the whole grains should be one third of whatever we are eating. So on two, like if we are having three large meals, it is recommended like we have cereals of 1 and 1.5 portion in those on those 3 meals, and rest other we should be filling it with fruits, then nuts, then seeds, and all those things. And also you can see from the plate like the protein content. So with every meal we should have a protein, so that our neurotransmitters are being produced, or are being produced in the normal manner, and there is no deficit. And also you can see that fats and oils, it is being recommended only 27 grams. So these include the fats which are being used for cooking, as well as the fats that we derive from the dry fruits. So it should be like, it is recommended like only 5 teaspoons of oil should be used in your total cooking for one person, and the rest leftover grams should come from the nuts and the oil seeds. So this is how a healthy plate should look like. And I think I would take a break here, and then I would come back to check upon your queries. Okay.
Okay, so now there is a break. After that, we will have a short question answer session. You can put your question in the chat box. Either you can put your question in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, or you can directly question to the Shreya ma'am.
Bonjour. French, being a foreign language, has become a part of our curriculum. But sometimes people forget that French is not just a foreign subject. It has more application outside than in school or college. Around 29 countries speak French. Some of them have French as an official language, which includes Canada and Switzerland, where major universities and multinational companies have their headquarters. Every multinational company looks for a local employee who can represent them on a foreign soil. Here's where your child's ability to communicate in French will make him a standout among the crowd. Here at Tuition E, We ensure that your kid not just understands, but also implements the very music of French in its school, college, or even at a workplace and stands out. But how do you make French stay with you even after the school? The answer is in its root, the basics. Every uprising building has the foundation deep inside the ground as well.
Struggling with English. English being a foreign language is always fearsome. But don't get scared. We are there to solve all your problems in English, be it English language. We are there to solve all your problems with a wing of come, join us in the English class. Hi, maths is a science that deals with quantity, shape, measurement. It's present everywhere, from the mobile that we use daily to engineering, technology, art, money, everywhere. So if you're pure about maths, come join tuition and we'll make maths more simpler.
Okay, so now we are having question answer session. If you have any question, you can ask to ma'am. You can put your question in the chat box. Anyone wants to do any question?
Okay, there is one question that I see there is written like how consumption of alcohol change our behavior. So alcohol, first let me tell you like what alcohol does to our body and how much calories it has. So depending upon what kind of alcohol you are having, there are changes in your calories. So it is usually taken like around 7 to 9 kcal only in 1 ml of alcohol can give you. So what alcohol does is it produces changes in our neurotransmitters, and it also starts the parasympathetic nervous system, and which leads to change in our behavior. So there are two types of nervous system that our body has. The one is parasympathetic and the another is sympathetic nervous system. So as a normal individual, we are all okay right now, and we have a certain pattern of walking, talking, or thinking. So once our parasympathetic nervous sets in, we are in a mode of fighting or of fleeing away. So this same thing happens when we have alcohol. So what it does is like on regular consumption of alcohol, it starts to change our nerves, it starts to change the nervous system, and then it ultimately changes our behavior. Like for a person who was not alcoholic will be like in a good controlled manner, but once he is on alcohol, he will feel a little bit of tipsy in nature, because already her there have started changes in the nerves, and there are the connections between the brain and between the body, it starts depleting, which will cause changes in the behavior. and ultimately it will lead to some of the violent behaviors, or there may be certain timid behaviors, whatever the individual wouldn't want to have in a normal setting. And also, as sugar, we have seen how it causes addiction. The alcohol in same way causes the addiction. So alcohol also does creates dopamine production, and huge dopamine production will lead to our cravings, and then we will be going into totally being into alcoholics, or being having regular alcohol. So it's recommended, like if someone is consuming alcohol, it should be like 2 glasses only of 60 ml. That would be enough. Or for the boys, and for the girls, 30 ml 1 glass is okay to go. Because given the food and the environment that we live in, and the hot conditions that we go through, it is recommended not to have alcohol on daily basis. I hope I have cleared the doubt. If there is anything, do let me know. Okay. So yes, so we can use jaggery instead of sugar. Yeah, because the jaggery has a lot of micronutrients in it as compared to the refined sugar. But whenever we are having jaggery, we should see like how much quantity. So portion is the key to it. So if we are having 3 spoonfuls of sugar, instead of that, if we have 3 spoonful of jaggery, it won't be beneficial for us. Instead, what we can do is we can use 1 spoon of jaggery instead of using 3 spoons of sugar. That will be good for our health, physical health, as well as for our mental health. Any other queries?
I think they all are clear with the session. I hope you all got a lot of information from this session. Thank you, ma'am, for this lovely session. And thank you, everyone, for joining with us. Here we are ending this session. Once again, thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best for your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a happy weekend.